What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of action here. We've got the big pay-per-view live from the O2 Arena in London. Early fight time, 12 p.m. start time for the prelim Central Time. I'm loving that action. The fights are sooner, the weigh-ins are sooner, and right now we still have 15 fights for a pay-per-view card that's headed off by a welterweight trilogy bout between the current champion, Leon Rocky Edwards, taking on Kamaru Usman. So awesome main event there. It's kind of split people between the narratives of that fight and the main event. Co-main event, awesome lightweight bout between Rafael Fiziev and Justin Gaethje. That one is fun to talk about as well. And there's a lot of even prospects that are making their debuts on this card that have some good matchups ahead of them. And we're going to get into it. I've got the perfect guy to talk me on to some bets or some underdogs here. My guy Clint from the Die Hard MMA Podcast. One of the most entertaining guys. His show is the first one I started watching when I got into mixed martial arts betting. So it's good to have you back on the show, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Patrick. Thank you for having me. I very much appreciate the awesome intro. It's good to be back. And yeah, man, I'm excited. This is a great card. I'm stoked to break it down with you. I think you hit me up in the DMs and reminded me we did pretty well last time we did a show together. So I'm looking forward to running it back.
The last time we did a show was UFC 282, and that was the only thing I got wrong on that card was that Paddy Pimblett call. I called Jared Gordon, and he didn't win the fight. So that was the only thing we got wrong that day. But we were calling underdogs left and right. It was
did
nice.
You get it wrong though?
I got it wrong. The judges told me I got it wrong. So so either way, we've got a fun fight card ahead of us. Besides the compelling main event, what's your favorite fight on this card? For me, it's got to be that Vettori Dolidze fight.
You know what? I was just going to say, I think Vettori Dolidze is probably my next up as far as most exciting fight on the card. But since you went ahead and picked that one, man, I'm going to go dumpster diving. I actually low-key am super excited about the very first fight of the night. I'm really curious about Veronica Hardy and Juliana Miller. I think there's a lot of things going into that fight. We'll talk about it in a minute here, but those are probably my top three. I'm excited about Vettori and Dolidze like everybody else is. Unstoppable object meets an immovable force, whatever you want to say about it. That one seems like a pretty great matchup.
They know what they're doing when they place these fights. Like the first fight on the pay-per-view card is usually like a violent spot. And so is the first one on the prelims too. This Juliana Miller and Veronica Macedo Hardy. I mean, that's going to be a crazy fight. We'll get into that. But first, let me shout out the chat. I saw my guy, Blood Money MMA Bets Cody, in the chat. First one. I know he's sleeping right now, getting ready for his early shift in the morning, but he dropped his breakdown on his YouTube channel. And I think we're going to do a live fight companion on Johnny K's channel this weekend as well. So
nice. Check
out those guys' channel. My guy, Zach Singleton, in the chat. Good to see you. My girl, Jenna Marie, in the house, the certified gem of MMA Twitter. Telling everybody to hit that like and subscribe. And I do have all of Clint's links in the description as well over for PubSportsRadio. And you still have your personal YouTube channel, right? That you do content occasionally?
I do. I'm trying to pay a little bit more attention to my YouTube channel these days. Thank you much for the shout out. And, on the pay-per-view cards, I do the Prediction Strike Fight Exchange show. That's hosted over on my personal YouTube channel these days. And we'll be doing that tomorrow since it's a pay-per-view week.
All right. My guy, Uncle Weezy, giving an oi in the chat. We got Luke Betya, good friend of mine. Weird to have this much handsome and no hair on the head. That is very true, but we're pulling it off here. My guy, Papa Chuck, in the house. And, let's get into this. Oh, Justin's in the house as well. And my guy, my co-host of the last panel we just did, Couch Warrior Podcast. Go check out his content. I think he's going to do some PFL content this week as well. Always hitting the non-UFC events. Daz Files in the house. And I think Lou Betya might be teasing that he's going to make an appearance with us on that fight companion. So hopefully we'll be watching some fights with Lou, drinking some whiskey and cashing some bets. But let's break into that first fight of the night that you were excited about at women's flyweight. The return of Veronica Macedo, now Veronica Hardy, 3 years out of the game, but still only 27 years old. Taking on Juliana Miller, who's making her second walk to the UFC octagon after winning the Ultimate Fighter in August. And the money line is wide, Clint, and I actually was thinking about firing off a bet on Veronica Hardy. I mean, you're either the right person or the wrong person to talk me onto that. I feel like it wouldn't take much for you to convince me to do so. I just feel like there's so much improvement that could be made for Veronica Hardy's game, which I don't think she had a bad skill set at just putting it all together in the octagon. She did not conserve her energy well. She's had some concussion-like symptoms in her last fight, up a weight class. horrible performance. And based on that, I just feel like I'd be throwing a blind bet here. So I'm not going to touch it. I do think Juliana Miller should get this done inside the distance. I like the violence spot either way. Are you taking the dog in this one?
I'm right there with you, man. I lean dog and I lean violence. I really am so tempted. Veronica Macedo, before Dan Hardy stole her from me, she was my girl, man. I was super excited about her. I love her skill set. She's quick on her feet. She bounces on her toes. She's got fast hands. She hits pretty hard for a little girl. And I don't mean that like little girl, but I mean, she's small in stature. You know what I mean? She hits pretty dang hard and she's mean. She's got this nasty submission game on her. She's a black belt, very opportunistic, quick hips. She's fast. She's faster than most of her opponents. I actually really liked what she brought to the table. And it looked right about when she was going to turn that corner. All of a sudden she fell off a cliff. Well, now we know why. She had some health concerns, some real issues, and just was not handling them properly. And of course, the solution is to take a fight up a weight class at 135 against Bea Malecki. And she still fought her ass off in that fight, man. And that's kind of one of those things for me as I'm looking at it like, if she's anything like she was before she left, this is the kind of girl that will fight for your money. And I like that when I bet on an underdog, someone who's not going to be out of it until that bell rings. Juliana Miller, we still don't really know a whole lot about her. Like, yeah, she won the Ultimate Fighter, but I feel like she's kind of a size bully, man. Like she's good. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to like talk down on her skill set or anything like that, but she's still very much a developing fighter at this point in her game. And she's able to just kind of beat these girls up that are not quite as big as her, not quite as strong as her. She's going to continue getting better. So there's always that, trying to outrun a future prospect thing we've got going where if you don't catch them early, you're probably not going to catch them. This is one of those spots where I'm a little tempted to take a sprinkle here on the dog because I think her game was more completed earlier on, even when she wasn't making great fight IQ, decisions. She fought KGB Lee to a 15-minute competitive decision. Yeah, she got tapped out by Jillian Robertson, but she won some of those scrambles, man, and she was defending some of those takedowns. And we know what Jillian does to girls that she has that size and strength advantage on. So I think there's some paths to victory here, whether it's catching an arm in like a scrambly type of position, or even if she just keeps this thing on the feet and uses that footwork and that movement and has kind of a more refined game these days. I think she can win a 15-minute striking match. So I do think the dog is very live here. If she gets stuck underneath Miller, though, she probably gets TKO'd to hell, but both of them will be live for subs. Like I said, I lean dog and under.
Yeah, the under 2.5 is about a pick 'em right now, like minus 110 each way. I think that's the way to play it for sure. It's the cardio for me, Clint. Really, like the cardio, just the way it fell off last time. But a lot could change in 3 years at the age of both these women. So it's who's improved more. And I see Zach Singleton in the chat saying Dan Hardy's not going to let her go in ill-prepared. That's true. He's a very analytical guy. Always puts out fight breakdowns himself. So,
and you know what?
That could happen. That could happen.
Everybody's got the angle of this is the UFC burying the Hardys, right? They're like, she hooked up with Dan Hardy. Fuck her. We're going to send her, straight to the brig. But Dan Hardy's on the flip side of that. This, it takes two to tango. So there's a chance that he knows exactly what they're walking into. And like you mentioned, one of the best analytical minds in the game. He is not going to send her in there expecting her to go out on her shield again. He's sending her in there expecting this is his wife. He thinks she's going to be able to win this fight.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So the where the money is at, I think it's dog or pass, or it's violence or pass at the very least. But man, you said it with the quick hips of Macedo. I mean, this is going to be a fun fight just because they're going to get in some weird scramble on the cage. This is like a total armbar out of nowhere type of situation for either girl here. So yeah, Uncle Weezy's saying he was blown away with Miller's performance against Brogan Walker. Yeah, I picked Brogan Walker. I thought she had the better experience. She'd been all around with the high-level women at the UFC caliber going into the show. And yeah, she got, pieced up and dominated on the mat. So yeah, I'm going to lead Miller in this one, but dog or pass, violence or pass is my play here. So I'm looking out for a Clint dog shot on this one, man. Hopefully you post that. I want to be rooting for Hardy here either way.
I'm trying to tighten it up just a little bit, and this card is full of landmines, so I'm not sure I'll get there, but yeah, you know me, man. I've got my eye on it.
Absolutely. Shout out to my guy, Any Action Effie, and he said earlier in the chat that he was lost some confidence seeing Juliana Miller shadow boxing at picture day. Effie is a content creator. He's got his own YouTube channel. Go check out the Any Action Sportscast. And he is in Vegas on scene, always going to these media days and hanging out with the fighters. So getting that inside scoop. Go check out his YouTube channel. Everybody in the chat. What's up to Jeek Bay? Good to see you in here, my friend, as always. So, yeah, moving on to a fight. I do have some action on it. Lightweight up next, Ludovic Klein versus Jai Herbert. Fun matchup. We got Klein, who's on a 2-fight winning streak, and both of those are now at 155 after – coming up short at featherweight a couple of times in the UFC. He does have knockout power, but he's equally finishing fights, 8 knockouts, 8 submissions. We haven't seen a whole lot of that finishing potential at the UFC level yet, but we might against Jai Herbert, who's a very tall, distant striker, good kickboxer, but, sometimes that chin can be lacking. So how do you feel about this matchup? Are you kind of weirded out by the durability issues we've seen from Jai Herbert here, or do you think it was just the Ilia Topuria fight, the Francisco Trinaldo fight? Were those one-offs, or is this something that's going to plague him?
I think it's a plague, man. I think Jai Herbert's got questionable durability, straight up, period. You know what I mean? And he was in there basically fighting the smartest game plan he possibly could against Kyle Nelson. So you don't want to be fighting for your life against a guy like Kyle Nelson when you're supposed to be a legitimate UFC fighter. He did what he had to do. He got the win. I was none so impressed with that performance. And I think Ludovic Klein is going to be super live for that head kick coming back here, man. I mean, we've seen the guy get kind of his cardio issues under control. He's still surprisingly young. Let me tell you that, man. This is that guy that I kind of thought he was 33 years old or something like that. Looking at him, he's 28. So he's still very much a developing fighter, very much an improving fighter. And what he did to Mason Jones just absolutely floored me. I could not have ever seen that coming. I was sold all in, put my chips in the middle on Mason Jones. And this guy made me look foolish. Like, I don't want to be the recency bias guy that runs it back on the dude we just saw have the best performance of his life. But at 28 years old, I feel like that's a stiffer level of competition than Jai Herbert was facing in his last fight, and he shined. So I think he should be competitive in the wrestling. I think he should be competitive in the striking. If he can just figure out how to get around that range, I think he's got more power. So, yeah, I think the rightful favorite here is going to be Ludovic Klein. The problem is the money line's getting a little out of hand for me as far as a bet is concerned. I'd like him at like minus 150-ish. We're talking minus 180, 190, 200 ballpark now. I'm not sure I want to lay that kind of a price tag with him, but I am picking Klein to get the win, and I'm going to be rooting for the knockout.
Yeah, I got in a little bit early before it got out of control over the weekend. Minus 155 on Ludovic Klein for a couple of units on that. I just like his skill set. I think he could win inside the distance, 100% finish rate in all of his losses for Jai Herbert. But I could see Klein getting this done by judges' scorecards, too. He's got the cage wrestling we saw. The Mason Jones fight, that caught me by surprise as well. I had pretty much written the obituary of Ludovic Klein's potential at the weight class. I thought he was a little bit too small in that matchup. He looked fine. He looked okay. He held his own. His distance striking and combination was great. So I think he does the same against Jai Herbert. And you mentioned the deadly high kicks from Ludovic Klein. Southpaw versus Orthodox. He's going to be firing those kicks all day without really too much resistance there, right? So, yeah, I like it a lot. The money line now, yeah, it might be getting away from us, but I still think it's a more comprehensive fighter you're getting. Shout out to my guy Dev in the chat, MMA Jesus. What is up, my friend? And my guy Chris for the Love MMA, one of my OG friends in this arena. Good to see you, man. And yeah, I mean, let's move on to another female fight here. One that, man, I had to have my guy Lou Betya talk me off of betting this fight. I asked him to. I begged him. Tell me why I should not put money on Joanne Calderwood here. Joanne Wood, I should say, at women's flyweight against Luana Carolina. The money line, it was like minus 160 at the time. Where's it at now? We're looking at minus 175 for JoJo Calderwood. I keep on calling her that because it's just what she's gone by. Joanne Wood, taking on Luana Carolina, the plus 150 underdog. I just think striker versus striker here. I mean, they're going to be in heaven. No woman's really going to wrestle all that much unless Joanne Wood initiates, in my opinion. And I just think she's the better striker. But the problem is, Clint, she's 37 years old. There's been rumblings of I was on Dale from the Punchless MMA's podcast last night. He's convinced that this is Joanne Wood's retirement fight, and he gave the most epic impression of her retirement speech after her win or loss. And he did it in the Scottish accent with her little voice as well. It had me in tears. So now I can't get it out of my head. I think this is her retirement fight. But dude, her boxing is so much better. Her striking offense is better. I think if she can cage wrestle, she could take that option to win minutes, stall the fight. Am I crazy here, or should should I just be laying off of this? Minus 125 Joanne Wood by decision is what I'm going with.
Honestly, man, I'd be the cautionary voice here on this one as well. I'd be trying to talk personally. I'd be trying to talk people off of this one. The retirement thing, you can't get away from it, right? Like she just got married. She's slowing down. She got thumped by the top 3 challengers in the division. She knows she's not going to touch a belt. And she's 37 years old. She just did an interview where she was telling everybody that she's only got a year or 2 maybe left in mixed martial arts. Okay. And as soon as that little retirement worm seeps into your brain, you can't get it out of there, man. I talked about this with Derek Brunson in his last fight. He looked like he was in the best shape of his life coming into that fight. But the R word was in his heart, man. Like, he talked about that being his retirement fight. And then he walked it back and he's like, nah, I ain't retiring. I'm going to come out here and win this one, reestablish myself, going right back to the top. No, he knew it was over. And then as soon as his gas tank died off and he slowed down just a little bit, that R word popped back up here a little bit. He didn't want to dig deep. He didn't want to go for it. It was over. It's time to hang it up. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting from JoJo. I know this is a massive step down in competition, man, but the only 2 wins she's had in the last, 4 or 5 years are KGB Lee by split, which could be contested, obviously, and Jessica Ai, who also has hung them up and been way behind everybody for some time now. So she's getting a giant jump down in competition. But Luana Carolina is another one of these young fighters who's improving every single time we see her. She's 29 years old. She's working with good bodies. She's showing improvements every single time she goes out there. For me, it's dog or pass. If I'm going to do anything, there's no way I'm laying minus 170, minus 180 on a fighter who could have 1 foot in the grave already.
Right. Hey, I don't hit that. I'm glad you talked. Yeah, Lou had already talked me off of it. And I missed the line when I was going to bet it. Now it's just a little crazy, but I was thinking that decision. Yeah, and this will be the perfect spot to retire too, wouldn't it? Like you talk about the lifestyle changes. Now it's like actually in like her own region of the world. They've got a big pay-per-view there. Would be a good stage to do it. Yeah, I still think she wins. Skill set for skill set though. You think Luana Carolina pulls away with this one?
So the issue here for me is it's a game of how far off the cliff has JoJo fallen and how high up is Luana Carolina climbing right now. Because if she's improved enough to the point where she can compete, I like Luana Carolina a lot. She's going to be younger. She's angrier. She's hungry. She's working her way up the chain. She still believes she can wrap gold around her waist at one point. If this was just like 2 years ago, JoJo, I am all in on JoJo. Like, she is outskilled everywhere in this spot. If we're talking even end of prime, JoJo Calderwood. But I don't know if her head's even in the game anymore, man. That's kind of the problem, and that's why I feel like this is almost a trappy line. Like, I feel like it should be straight up wider. I feel like JoJo Wood should be a minus 225 or a minus 250 favorite in this spot if they really felt like she was still in it. Again, Carolina just getting better for me, man. And you've seen in some of her recent fights, she's actually worked her way into the grappling realm a couple times. She's got some sneaky chokes that she's attempted. She got on, was it Botello's back? She had back control on somebody for a minute, and she was hunting a rear naked choke. Like, we've seen the grappling be a hole in JoJo Wood's game. I know some people talking about that being the hole in Carolina's game. I just know one of them is improving and the other one is degrading right now. So, yeah, man, maybe Carolina, 15-minute kickboxing match more than likely, but I'm going to look for the sub numbers because if it's one of those stupid 20-1 ones, it may just get a sprinkle out of me.
Yeah, I think our guy Tajik Bey was actually looking at the submission there for Luana as well at big plus money. Yeah, all right, you're leading the dog here. I mean, you got to do that. You got to anticipate the regression of one fighter and anticipate, the upside of another one, especially at this age. They're like 9 years apart. So, yeah, you've talked me off of the bet successfully. We can move on to the next one, which is a great prospect here in Jake Hadley coming in for his third walk to the UFC cage, taking on Malcolm Gordon at flyweight. And gotta say, Clint, at flyweight, that's one of those ones where it's like if you've got a durability issue like Malcolm Gordon, it's just no way I can even think about backing you because you got so many punches being thrown per minute, per round at flyweight. The chances of you getting knocked out if you're chinny are so much higher. So leading Jake Hadley here, it's minus 400 though, plus 300 for Malcolm Gordon, who just had a pretty good, he'd kind of been written off and now he made a lot of people sweat in that last bout he had against Mokaev. So a lot of people had the either parlayed Mokaev or the inside the distance back at UFC 280, and everybody was sweating up until that last second. So Malcolm Gordon, he's a grappler. Jake Hadley, grappler, and he could strike his way to a victory here too. So simply put, that's where I'm at with this one. No action so far. What do you have on this fight?
So for this one, I'm waiting for the prop to drop. I don't think it's hit quite yet, but I'm going Jake Hadley by knockout, man. I might have my tinfoil hat on a little too tight in a couple spots on this card, but definitely not looking at the dog here in this spot. I'm a giant Malcolm Gordon hater. Nothing against the guy personally, but his durability is such a huge liability when it comes to high-level martial arts. And he's a high-level BJJ player, man. He's one of those guys that's got a legitimate black belt on him. He's got a decent wrestling game. He kind of uses that to survive. Jake Hadley's dangerous everywhere. You can go inside the distance with this guy because he can finish by sub. He can finish by knockout. But for me, it's the slick boxing. I think he's just so smooth on the feet. His jab is crisp and it's hard, and he sits down on his punches. I think if he defends 1 or 2 takedowns, Gordon's going to be shooting from 10 feet across the cage and catching bombs on his way in. So I think we're going to see an improved get-right spot here for Jake Hadley, and I think it's a knockout.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm Gordon is so ill at ease on the feet. Like, he has all the experience, the striking, probably the fundamental striking skill, but he never seems to want to strike at range. He wants to crash the pocket as fast as he can, as recklessly as he can, and try to get the fight into his arena, which is not going to serve him well here with his poor takedown defense. Yeah, I think you're right here, man. I think we could see, because even if Jake Hadley wanted to just strike and leave the grappling out, I think he could win over 3 minutes. You'll probably get that, or 3 rounds, probably get that knockout at some point. Do you have a number on that?
I don't, and that's why I'm just pulling up my phone right now to check and see if it's dropped yet. They haven't gotten to that fight yet here as far as the books that I've got available to me, unfortunately. So
I'm just looking at BetOnline, which has terrible prop numbers. For this card in general, BetOnline is their first, but they're so bad. Like, you're not getting much at all for some of these.
I'll bet you it's even money.
It's plus 170 for Jake Hadley by knockout on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's better than I expected, to be honest, man. I thought it was going to be like plus 125 or plus 110, something like that. Okay. I will gladly take some plus 170 on Jake Hadley by knockout.
Yeah, I never really thought of it from that. I mean, I thought of like inside the distance just to cover both sides of it. But yeah, that's not a bad spot. I wonder what DraftKings or FanDuel is going to drop on that.
Honestly, inside the distance, especially if you are getting even money or minus 120 or something like that, inside the distance is probably the move because he's so dangerous. With his subs, he can roll to his back and throw up a triangle anytime he wants. We just saw Gordon kind of choke in the 3rd round and give up that arm bar late. But again, for me, it's the hands versus the chin. Like, the only fear is the club and sub. If he hurts him, rocks him, but doesn't put him all the way out, and Gordon shoots in on an ill-advised takedown, the submission is going to be there. So yeah, if you're getting not that big of a discrepancy in the number from inside the distance to the knockout, then I'll flip to inside the distance. But if it's like minus 120 versus plus 170, that's a big enough gap. I probably will still play some knockout. Maybe I'll play both.
Any feeling on the under 1.5 that nonstop Philly is highlighting here? Plus money on that under 1.5.
I don't mind it. The only thing for me, though, is that Gordon has been doing a real good job lately of protecting that chin. Like, he knows his problem at this point. So, like, Francisco Figueiredo's a bum. He went to decision with him, so that's not overly surprising. But the Mokaev fight, I'm not sure if Mokaev just doesn't have power or if we have to give Gordon some credit in that spot where he came in better shape and maybe he's, better defensively. And that's the reason he didn't go to sleep in that fight. Jake Hadley's not like a one-hitter quitter power puncher. He's kind of a volume attritional type of power puncher. He does have a couple of round 1 chokes, but most of his he's got late finishes and early finishes, and it's mostly submissions. So like, he is a club and sub type of guy. It's just the matter that I think that Gordon has no chin. So it could be early. It could absolutely be a first round one and done type of fight, but it wouldn't shock me if it squeezed into that second round. And then your butthole's clenching up a little bit at 1.5.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of playing under 1.5s just for the pressure of it in general, unless it's like heavyweight or something like flyweight. It's even less so. But you're looking at a guy kind of like Herbert in Malcolm Gordon, where he's got 100% of his losses are all by finish. So 4 knockouts, 2 submissions for Malcolm Gordon, and all of his losses could be a spot. But yeah, for flyweight, I'm usually tempted to play the over, if anything. But yeah,
I would lean under in this spot, but I don't think I'm betting it. I especially if it's at plus 115 at 1.5. I don't see Gordon winning by finish, frankly. So I'd rather play Hadley inside the distance and get all 3 rounds under me.
Yeah, and speaking of inside the distance versus like one method, you're right. Like if there's a big discrepancy and you have a path, then you can play it. But I hate getting burnt on. I pick submission and they knock him out, or you pick knockout and then he bops him over the head. He's dead to rights, and then they dive on his neck just to get the tap. It's just the worst. I'd rather eat the chalk and play inside the distance unless there's a big enough discrepancy in the line.
That's the key. It's a numbers game for me, man. If you're talking plus 200 versus minus 110. That's a giant number switch, like roll the freaking dice. But if it's, plus 150 and plus 110, there's no discrepancy there. You're going to argue over 40 cents? No, take inside the distance.
Nonstop Philly, shout out to you. I appreciate you joining the channel, my friend. Stopping by, have a good sleep as we roll on to the debut of Christian Leroy Duncan at middleweight against Duško Todorovic, who's returning to the UFC for his 7th appearance already. I feel like Duško just joined the UFC not too long ago. It's been so recent, but he's already got 3 losses, 3 wins under his belt. And that's the thing about Duško, man. He's still 28 years old. Power hitter. He can grapple from time to time as well. But the difference in his opponents that he's lost to and beat are vast. He's losing, somehow going to decision with Gregory Rodriguez in one of Rodriguez's earlier fights, beating, losing to Soriano, losing to, who's the third guy I'm missing here that he lost to? Somebody else higher caliber.
Chidi
Njokuani elbowed the shit out of him. Yeah. But he's beating guys that are not in the UFC ever again, not seen or heard of on the roster. So, man, where does Christian Leroy Duncan fit in here, Clint? He's one of the better guys from Cage Warriors. Super exciting highlight reel knockout artist, but a long amateur career as well. I think the guy's pretty athletic, pretty explosive. I like him to win the fight. How do you feel about him?
I'm right there with you. I do kind of like him to win the fight. The way he moves, man, he's defensively sound on the feet, and then he just explodes in with ridiculous flying knees and shit like that. This guy hits hard, and we have seen that Duško's got a bit of a chin issue. He leaves that thing up there to be hit. It's not that I don't know that he's necessarily not durable, because we saw him go 15 minutes with a guy like Gregory Rodriguez, but he's hittable, and he leaves his chin hanging up there in a bad spot. You don't know, a young kid, maybe that's something that he can improve on defensively, and it's not a durability problem moving forward. But if he hasn't patched that up, and I have no reason to believe that he suddenly has here in a 4-month gap, I think he's going to get clipped with something big, just because that's the way that Christian Duncan seems to fight. But I could see this fight stretching a little bit, man. We've seen Duško go to the grappling early on and have success with that. I could see him stealing the first round off of Christian Duncan, and Duncan being tested for the first real time and having to kind of fight his way back into this one. I like Duncan as a prospect. I definitely think he's got a higher ceiling. I like his overall skill set. I'm going to pick him to win, but I got a hard time getting there at minus 210.
Yeah, I took him at minus 190 actually for 1 unit, and then I put another unit on the inside the distance for Duncan at minus 110. And I like the spot. And what you mentioned about he could lose round 1, that's normally an issue for me with a guy that is like a power striker. But what I've seen from the entire career of Christian Duncan is he's got the cardio to come back in round 2 and not really skip a beat. Like it's a rare trait to be that fast twitch, that explosive, but still keep the gas tank going into a 3-round fight later on. So his takedown defense not the best, but his get-up game is exceptional. He's got very good scramble ability for a bigger guy, and he keeps that pace and still can switch stances. Super good spinning attacks. The spinning elbows, I've seen him drop multiple opponents with, knocked out one of them. I like it here, and you're right. Duško Todorovic, like especially that fight when he took on Soriano, like Soriano like started that punch like a football field away and still managed to land on the chin of Duško. He had like an hour to prepare for that and got knocked out. So I know he was rocked and kind of on ice skates at that point, but still, I could see something similar to that happening where he skirts around the cage trying to evade, and something catches him he didn't think was going to catch him. Maybe definitely a high kick or something like that. So
yeah, I could see it being later, man. You talked about the cardio. I could see Duško having a good first round and then, getting chipped apart in the second or the third and having a late TKO for this kid.
Yeah, the over-unders for this one, I've seen some people take stabs on that. It seems really volatile for me, in this fight at 185. You know what Leroy Duncan's going to be trying to do is, and that does worry me a bit in front of his hometown crowd in a debut. if he tries too hard to have that like highlight reel moment, but he seems a little bit more intelligent than that. You know, if you're headhunting the whole time, sometimes it just doesn't materialize and you fall behind on the scorecards. But I like the skill set of Duncan. So I'm willing to take the stab on a debuting fighter, pay the chalk on him. So yeah, I feel a little bit odd about that, but it is Duško Todorovic, and I think Duncan falls somewhere in between who Duško has beaten and lost against. So not too bad, you know. But yeah, you have a feeling on the over/under in this one at 1.5?
At 1.5, I'd actually have to go over, man. I think this could be one of those ones that's greasy and grimy, and
it's like a
Duško hangs in there diving on legs.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's like a pick-em price tag for the over/under. But
yeah. I mean, usually when you get, especially a debutant that's like -200 or higher, like you're thinking it's going to be an easy finish. You're thinking it's going to be a quick early finish. Mm-hmm. And granted, he could catch Duško with something, but like, does this guy hit as hard as Cheaty? I don't know if he hits as hard as Cheaty, man. Does he hit as hard as Gregory? Well, if he does, we could see an over like that. I'm just not sure yet. This guy's really untested at this level, and we're still not really sure what to make of Duško at this point, because like you said, he's got bad wins, but they are wins, and then he's got decent losses. So like, where exactly does he fall? Like I'd look over, if anything, over 1.5.
Daz Files talking about if anybody has a Duncan parlay here. I don't know. That would be we'll talk about that fight coming up here, but that would be an interesting play. I feel like we had one of those similar name parlays recently on a card. I can't think of which one it was. I feel like there was like I don't know. I'll never think of it. I'll think of it as soon as the stream ends. Shout out to Casey Jones. Shout out creatine. Absolutely great supplement. Shout out to creatine. But we move on to the featherweight division. Lerone Murphy finally returning, dude. We haven't seen him since UFC 267 back in Abu Dhabi. And Gabriel Santos making his debut on short notice. But he's one of the better prospects to come in here, coming off of the LFA championship in January. He won down in Brazil. He was there a couple of times in that promotion. 10-0, 7 finishes out of those 10 wins. And he's got a pretty good style, you know, like a come forward Muay Thai style, but really, really good grappling. Very good BJJ practitioner once he gets it to the mat. Lerone Murphy, very athletic counter striker, switch stand striker. And he can be a little bit one at a time, but dude, if he gets it to the mat and he ends up in a dominant position, his ground and pound is pretty nasty. And he's got at least decent like anti-grappling as far as submission defense goes. But he's been off for a while. And man, I was one of the people that jumped on his DraftKings line when it came out at -135, hammered it for 3.5 units. But thinking that, like, why is this not a -300? And then I dove into a little bit deeper. And now maybe it's the tape I saw, or maybe it's the worry of having a bunch of money on it. But now I'm starting to be like, oh God, what have I done here? Because what if Lerone Murphy is one at a time striking? What if he does get pieced up in this? What if his back is taken? He ends up like in a body triangle for the majority of a round or two. What could go wrong here, Clint? Kick it to me. Is the bet okay or no?
Man, I am struggling here because Lerone Murphy is one of my like keep an eye on him type of prospects. I love this guy. I've been waiting for him to come back for so long. I was all over him on the Mach 1 Amirkhani spot. I couldn't believe his win over Douglas Silva. Like, he's fought a high level of competition since his first step into the octagon, man. I love this guy. The raw physical gifts that he has, he can close the show with one punch against any opponent. And the fact that he had to come back on Zubaira Tuhugov, earned himself a draw in that spot, like, you just can't ever count him out. I absolutely love it. But when you dig into Gabriel Santos, this kid is real. Like, you look at the records of his opponents. These are not Brazilian scrubs. It's 12-2, 13-1, 11-2, 10-1. Like, he's facing real legitimate competition before getting over here to the UFC. He's undefeated, 10-0, and he's got a very well-rounded skill set. Like, I love his marauding striking style. Looks like he hits hard. He's big for the weight class, punches his way into range, and then he looks to grapple. He's a Brazilian, man. He knows his way around a ground game. He's got a good backpack on him. He's got decent offensive takedowns, and we have seen that be a problem for Murphy. Murphy's another one of these Jamal Hill prototypes, right? Like, he doesn't have great takedown defense, but he's got a damn good get-up game. I don't know if you want to get taken down by a guy like Gabriel Santos. So Gabriel Santos does not have the weaknesses of some of the previous opponents that Murphy's had. Like, you know, we all know about Ricardo Ramos. He's a glass cannon. He's got chin issues. We all know Mach 1 Amirkhani. You know, the takedowns are inevitable, and he set him up on one of those spots, and the guy gasses. So, like, There's some holes to be exploited there. I'm sure Gabriel Santos has got some holes to exploit, but at this point, we have yet to see any of them. He very much looks like a good, solid, completed fighter here to me. I'm very excited for this matchup. Unfortunately, I would have to lean dog or pass. I'm very tempted on an underdog shot here on Gabriel Santos. Mostly, I do not bet debuting fighters. I made that mistake last week, bit me in the ass, cost me. I broke one of my own rules, and that's why I don't do it, man. They're hard to gauge exactly where they're at in their first UFC fight. This is a big-time measuring stick, and the respect that I have for Lerone Murphy is probably going to keep me away from this spot, but betting-wise, yeah, it's probably dog or pass for me. If you got that like bottom low level minus 135 price tag that was flying around out there, the bookies open Lerone Murphy minus 275. Like, you bought as low as you're going to get. That's a solid bet in my opinion. If you got in early and you got the big juicy plus 200 on Gabriel Santos, you're free rolling this spot. You've got a better ticket than anybody else in the game right now. All of us that are kind of sitting in the middle, it's a coin flip. Like, I'm not sure which side the value is on. I'm not sure where the bet should go. Dog or pass for me, betting wise, probably a pass.
Okay, you haven't helped my worries any bit there, Clint. I'm still worried about it as I was before your breakdown, especially with my guy Daz File saying Santos is the best dog in the card. But then my Uncle Weezy comes in here, my friend, saving my ass here, letting me sleep easy at night after the stream's over, saying it's his ass shaving of the week for Lerone Murphy. So thank God for that. Thank you, Unc. But yeah, man, the things that I like about Lerone in this matchup style-wise, Gabriel Santos plods forward, not very good head movements, not the best footwork striking-wise, in my opinion. If he's aggressive, I think Lerone Murphy can time him, hit him with something explosive, and end the show inside the distance. But yeah, I mean, Santos is the real deal, man. Like, if there's not been really like a better guy to come in here on short notice, but it is short notice. This is a 26-year-old Santos, his first fight outside of Brazil. He's never fought outside the country before. Now he's going to London on a big card on short notice. The intangibles going towards Lerone Murphy, but Lerone Murphy was like hit off of his bike by a car or something last year. I think that's why he didn't make that fight against Nate Landwehr.
So yeah, I think that's why he didn't make the Landwehr fight, and then Wood had his leg sliced open or something like that. He's had a rough go as far as like getting his fights knocked off, unfortunately. But that's a very good point about Gabriel Santos. Short notice is a real thing, and I'm going to be watching this kid closely on the scales because making weight could be a problem for him coming in on that kind of short notice and flying across the world.
Yeah, that's man, my worries of these weigh-ins, man. I'm always a nervous Nelly when it comes to these weigh-ins for these big cards, just hoping things fall into place. And it will be like super early in the morning. I think the ceremonial weigh-ins are at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. So I think the actual weigh-ins will be like, probably at least 6 to 8 hours earlier than that. So it'll be an early morning like weigh-ins. That. So I have to wake up and on my way to work be checking out the weigh-ins and how they're going. It's always a bummer when you see, just there's an empty period of time on the weigh-in stream and somebody just didn't walk out to the scale. Then they just announce over the PA that the fight's off. Like, God damn it. Yep, not that one. Anyone but that one. But yeah, we can move on. Yeah, I don't feel much better. There's some discrepancy in the chat here as well, and your breakdown highlighted good reasons to bet the dog in this one. And there's been some smart people I saw betting on Santos. So, but yeah, we can move on. Maybe you can make a case for this next dog making their debut. Filho coming in here at a 14-2 record off the Contender Series, and he's the guy from the Nova União gym, Jose Aldo's old stomping ground, taking on Mokaev. So this is a tough spot, being a Dana White Contender Series alumnus and having to face Mokaev in his hometown on a big pay-per-view card. 22-year-old phenom, undefeated Mokaev, the 23-0 amateur record as well. And we just saw him have to, peel victory from the jaws of defeat in his last fight back at UFC 280. Is it going to be a tough test like that again, or do you think he gets this job done inside the distance quicker? I know Filho, I watched a lot of his fights, and he has not really fought a wrestler, like a smothering top-pressure wrestler, the way he's going to face on Saturday. How do you feel about this guy?
I already bet Mokaev by sub, man. I have very few bets on this card, and this is one that I did pull the trigger on. Frankly, I think this is a silver platter type of situation here for Filho. for Mokaev. I'm not impressed at all by Joffo Filho. I mean, he seems like he's all right. I can't really complain too much about what I've seen from him. But the one thing he does is he leaves his neck out there. Every single fight I've been able to find footage on, he sticks his neck in guillotines, and he just has faith that he can work his way through those. I'm sorry, but Muhammad Mokaev, I think, is the real deal. I think this kid is an insanely high-level prospect, and I think they're giving him somebody who he can get a highlight reel finish against before he takes a break, because I guess he needs like a shoulder surgery. That was something I found out after I made the bet, obviously. If that's true, if he does,
I've heard people talking about this. Where'd that come from?
I'm not sure.
Just interviews, an interview he did or something like that?
I guess so, yeah. But I mean, it's one of those things where you got to wonder just how bad it is. Because I mean, a bum shoulder is a problem, but we know these fighters come in with undisclosed injuries constantly. So I'm not going to let it like scare me off my bet or anything like that. But frankly, I don't think that anybody that's outside the top 10 is going to be able to hang with the wrestling of Muhammad Mokaev. So I expect him to dominate that like we've seen him do in every single fight so far against Filho. And I think if Filho, someone who also likes to take it to the ground, shoots a lazy takedown like we've seen him do before, he's going to end up in a guillotine, and this one could be over quick, man. I like Muhammad Mokaev a lot, and I expect him to choke him out.
Especially when you have a guy in Filho he's had mixed a mixed bag of, the strength of his schedule is what I'm trying to say. Like his opponents sometimes early on, they were a little bit lackluster in the regionals. He's had some better ones as well that he's come over victoriously, but I think 13 of his 14 fights have been inside the distance finishes. So when you have to go against a guy who's a cardio machine, relentless pace and pressure like Mokaev brings, it's a tough test, especially when you haven't seen that type of skill set before. So I am riding with Mokaev. What was the number on the number on the submission prop?
It was plus 110. Plus 110.
Okay.
That's, it's one of those ones where I'm like, it's not sexy. We're not getting plus 180. Yeah. We're not getting plus 200. But that's what Mokaev does. He's a decision or sub type of guy. And the weaknesses I've seen on the Filho side, I think he's going to catch him with something eventually.
Yeah, even when Mokaev knocks you out, he still submits you, right? You can ask Cody Durden about that. So that's a good spot there. Yeah, I'm looking at even money, even on BetOnline for Mokaev by submission. I see my guy Tajik Bey in the chat saying the underdog is going to come in here and sub. He's plus 1,600 by submission on BetOnline, so I'm sure you can get a better price than that for the contrarian play by submission on another book. And that would be he's inside the distance guy. So if you're going to bet the dog here, bet him inside the distance. He's done it. Yeah,
he's a killer be killed guy. That's how he wins or loses.
Yeah. So I like that spot, but yeah, I can't really justify a minus 800 on Mokaev, but you are paying that Russian tax on this one a little bit, but to soften that up with your method and getting plus money for that, I do like that spot. And I tend to agree with you. I think he gets it done by sub.
In my opinion, anytime you can take a minus 500 or better and turn them into a plus, that's, how bad could it really be? You know what I mean?
For a guy like Mokaev, that's like a true prospect. Now, there are some other spots in this card, like even the fight we're about to talk about at lightweight here. I mean, you've got like these giant, chalky favorites, and then like the bookies are like acting like they're doing you a favor by saying, "Oh, you want a round and a method prop? Here's plus 200." It's like, oh, come on, you're just making this look like I'm getting a deal on it. But for a guy that's like battle tested like Mokaev, I think you're in a good spot there.
I mean, you think of the Bo Nickel spot, right? Like they were charging us minus 120, minus 130 for the sub. It was always the sub, man.
I paid minus 165 and it's still cash. So yeah,
it's still a good bet. That was it.
Yeah. So it worked out for us. But we can move on to two debuting fighters in this one. Sam Patterson taking on Yanal Ashmoz at 155. One guy coming off the Contender Series in Sam Patterson. One guy coming off of the PFL Challenger Series last year in Yanal Ashmoz. I don't think he was chosen to continue his trajectory into the PFL, but he's getting a better shot now in the UFC on a big card. So 6-0 for Yanal Ashmoz, who is the underdog here. I think Sam Patterson is around minus 270, the favorite. Yanal Ashmoz plus 230. I think the line is wide. Like, I do agree with Sam Patterson being the favorite here, but man, his striking up close, Clint, once you get in range of his 6'3", 78-inch reach, a lightweight, just a massive physique, you get inside, be his shadow as the shorter man. He does not really have an answer for that. Some tall man defense. His chin is out there for the taken from a big overhand right, but his grappling is really good. He brings a pretty good pace. His takedown defense, it's good in spots, and as well as like if he can sprawl and brawl and like actually take your back with those long limbs, put the hooks in, does some good work there, some really good front chokes, and he's tall enough to get that front choke from a standing position guillotine. I like that as well. Ashmoz, more of a grappler, but some okay striking at range. He looks on paper like he'd be a finisher with 5 wins coming by way of stoppage out of his 6 wins. But, man, I feel like he's just faced some low-level guys. He's been able to outpace cardio-wise and get the finish. How do you feel about, Ashmoz here as a debuting fighter?
Man, this was the first bet that I made on the card. I did take a taste of the dog here at plus 240. I think Ashmoz is just one of these tough bastards, man. He gets in your face and he refuses to go away. And we have seen that exact game plan work on Sam Patterson in the past. Now, Patterson, he's a monster at this weight class, dude. He's so big, and I love his front chokes. The ninja chokes, the high elbow guillotines that he hits. Those things are deadly, but he's also needed those to bail him out before at times. Now, the fact that he's been able to hunt them and get them, you got to give the guy props, right? You got to give him credit for being able to find those finishes and come back like that. But we've seen exactly what Ashmoz does work on Sam Patterson. I think he can bully this guy against the cage. I think he can grind off the clock. Like you mentioned, I think he can beat his shadow, get inside that reach and that range, land some power shots, drag him to the mat, let him get back up, drag him right back down, pin him up against the fence again. Like, I just think Yanel can put this kid through hell. And as long as he avoids that front choke, I think he's extremely live in this spot. Now, I'm not going to sell Patterson short whatsoever. Like you mentioned, some of the guys on Ashmoz's record, not the highest level of competition. Those are the finishes that he's getting in round 2, round 3. I think it's a decision. I think it takes pretty much everything he's got for Ashmoz to get this guy to the judges' scorecards, but I do think that he can win a decision over Sam Patterson. Obviously, Patterson by sub is going to be an easy pick for a lot of people this week, and I get it. He's so good at finding those front chokes, and Ashmoz is a guy that comes forward and presses that grappling, so the opportunity will be there. But if Ashmoz looks at even just a little bit of tape on his opponent, he's going to know that that's coming. Trains out of a good gym. I like it, man. I'm going to roll the dice here in this spot. 2 guys that are relatively unknown. We're not really sure about either of them at this point. I'll take the shot on the plus 240 dog. We'll see how it goes.
I like that play. I don't mind it at all. When it comes down to these 2 guys, I'm not the most impressed by either one. I think Patterson should be the favorite. I think he gets the submission at some point with Yanal rushing in, but I could easily see a world where all the numbers go in the favor of Ashmoz here. You're looking at, I think he's the better, the value side, if you want to say that, and all the props. I was just looking when you were speaking here on the Sam Patterson by submission. I saw that at plus 400 earlier when I was doing the tape for this fight. And I was kind of unimpressed with that. Like, I know the cat's out of the bag with his 5 submissions out of his 10 wins, but I was kind of unimpressed with that. Now it's moved down to plus 275 on DraftKings, plus 260 on BetOnline. Like, you're not getting anything for this submission prop on Patterson. So either people hammered it or they just corrected that line. It's just I'd be more inclined to bet the Ashmoz by points, what you were bringing up, by plus 550. Like, that's a much better line for that, plus 600 on DraftKings for Yanal by decision.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those ones where I think it's clear paths to victory, right? If you're taking Patterson by sub, plus 200, plus 300, like, that makes tons of sense to me here. Ashmoz by decision also make tons of sense to me here. I don't know that he's going to knock this kid out. I don't know that he's going to submit, pull the reverse Uno card and submit his man. Yeah. I don't see that taking place. Yeah, I think it's sub or decision, quite frankly. I mean, who's got
the cardio edge, do you think? Can you make a decision based off of the tape?
That's a great question. And it's another kind of unknown factor here in this fight. It might be Ashmoz. Like, the fact that he's got all those late round finishes leads me to believe, from what I've seen, it looks like he's able to just pour it on when his opponents kind of fade. But the same can be said for Sam Patterson. He also has multiple round 2 and round 3 finishes. Now, a lot of the times, not a lot of the time, sorry. Some of the times he can be on the defense in those situations and catches somebody. But again, he's got the wherewithal to find it. He's got the opportunity to locate it, and he's not too tired to attack and land that shot. I'm not sure who has the cardio edge. I would hope it's Ashmoz. I'd like to say it's Ashmoz. The way he fights, the style of game plan that he's got, I think it happens that way more often. But really, Sam Patterson, when it comes to his cardio, he hasn't given me a reason to insult him in that area. I haven't seen him gas out or slow down or tire out. Like, I actually respect Sam Patterson's cardio a lot here in this spot. So evens, I guess. That's a long way for me to say I don't have an opinion on that.
Yeah, Uncle Weezy saying Patterson has an incredible gas tank. Yeah, I mean, that's for low-level guys and guys making their debut. That's kind of what I revert to is like the cardio. That's one of my like main staples, for especially the new fighters, because that's one of the things. It's like cardio, toughness, fight IQ. That's something you just expect when you're rising up the ranks in the division. It doesn't even really matter. It should be equal across. I know it's not all the time, but these lower-level guys, you gotta have to start thinking about those things, more than you would a ranked fighter. So I kind of go back to that, but this confuses me. You do have action on this one, right? You pulled the trigger on the plus 240, Ashmoz, right?
I did. Yeah, it was plus 240.
I'll be rooting for you.
I appreciate it. I'm going to need it. It's come down a little bit. I'm seeing, plus 230s out there and stuff like that right now. So I feel like I got the peak. I feel like I got the high point, which is always what we're looking for, is getting the best line here. I'm going to plug my nose on this one and take a shot. I could look like an idiot come Saturday. He could get, KO'd or submitted in the first round. Totally possible. It's a bit of a dart throw, but I think the stylistic matchup is solid for him. So hopefully he can implement that game plan for me.
I like it. We can move on. Same division here at lightweight. We got Chris Duncan, the second Chris Duncan on this card, taking on Omar Morales. Omar Morales, the point that was one of the best attributes of his game was like he was durable, big for the weight class. Then he started to face some guys that were, kind of sizing up to him at the weight class, and now his durability kind of went out the window, right? He got TKO'd. He got submitted by Pierce. He got TKO'd in his last fight against Jiro Šmedić. Chris Duncan coming in here off the Contender Series. It took him 2 Contender Series attempts. Slava Klaus knocked him out the first time, and he almost got knocked out the second time, and then managed to, on the retreat, get that nice straight right to knock out his man, Campbell, on the show. Now, Chris Duncan, I just can't get behind this guy. This fight is a pick'em. It's been trading, money slightly back and forth. There's been minus 120 on Duncan, minus 120 on Omar Morales. I lean the Morales side here, but he's 37 years old. But Chris Duncan is so defensively irresponsible. I cannot get behind him. So a pass betting-wise for me. You could maybe lean the fight doesn't go in this spot, but Chris Duncan's so tough, and I think Omar Morales is going to be a very tough target to find. So that would stress me out even playing the unders in this fight. So what's your feeling on this one, man? I don't have a really strong lean on it. I'm going to lean Morales as being the cleaner striker, and I think a sneaky submission spot could even be live for him in this spot. He does attack some front chokes from time to time. Chris Duncan, if he gets hit square in the face, he'll buy himself time by diving in for a takedown, leaving his neck on the side, open for a guillotine or a front choke. So that's kind of where I'm leaning with this one, just from a hunch, but no money on this one for me. How do you feel?
Honestly, man, I feel the exact same as you. It's real tough for me here in this spot. I don't think Duncan's very good, frankly. I think he's one of these guys that's just tough as nails and hits really hard. We've seen him make poor choices. We've seen him get chinned. He punches his way through that. He wrestles his way through that. And he's going to overcome some people with that, just raw physical ability to do that. But I've seen him hurt so many times. I think someone who's UFC caliber, someone who's a slicker striker, they're going to take advantage of that. And I think that could be Omar Morales. The problem for me is Omar Morales has kind of given me the Jojo Calderwood vibes, right? Like he flared out at this weight class, dropped a weight class trying to find new life, got buried, and now he's coming back up to his home weight class, hoping to keep it going. You got to wonder what that does to a guy. Like his volume isn't great. His low volume nature isn't fantastic. When these guys hop skip weight classes all over the place like that, did they lose a lot of muscle mass? Is his power still there? He doesn't seem to be hitting as hard as he used to. He's a decisionator here in the UFC. So I want to think Omar Morales can clip this guy and put him away, but Chris Duncan is going to be in his face. Chris Duncan might have a power advantage. He probably has a volume advantage, and Omar Morales is maybe fighting for his life here in this spot. I do think Omar Morales can just kind of out-technique him on the feet, go to work, be the crisper, cleaner striker. I think I'm going to pick Omar Morales to go ahead and get the win here in this spot. And again, I think that's mostly because I just don't think very much of Chris Duncan. And it's also who was it a couple of weeks ago? Cody Garbrandt, where it's like a do whatever it takes to keep your job type of spot. He won by decision because he refused to put himself in even 1 second of danger in that fight. That might be the game plan for Omar Morales here, where I do think he could knock him out. I do think he could submit him. Is he going to? He might just play the Matador all night and do whatever it takes to get his hand raised at the end of the night. So I'm going to pick Omar Morales. I'm definitely not betting this one.
Yeah, it's a pick 'em for a reason. If I have one strength betting-wise in this mixed martial arts crazy game we play, it's these even money fights, or like slight favorites, slight underdogs. Like I'm usually doing the best at picking those, but this one I'm very confused. And you also brought up something. Oh, really? That's the tougher spot for you?
I hit the big dogs or the big favorites more often than not. You know what I mean? And it's these pick'em closely lined fights that I tend to be on the wrong sides of.
I can usually sniff out the ones that are like the just teetering on a pick'em price tag. But you also brought up a point that I have either it's too late or I haven't had enough caffeine today, but I totally forgot that Omar Morales had switched weight classes a couple of times now. And this is a return. His last fight was the return to lightweight. It's because he fought such big guys. Like Jonathan Pierce is kind of like a lightweight looking guy. Uros Medic in that same camp as well. Kind of a slimmer, but still tall lightweight. So yeah, I forgot about that. This is his second fight at lightweight in a row now.
Can you imagine going down a weight class looking for an advantage and JSP just absolutely mauls you and you're like, fuck that, I'm going to go back up where I'm strong. And then they give you Uros Medic, a guy that's got like a full 6 inches of height on you and blasts you out in the second round. Like this poor guy, man. And you know what? Shout out MMA Jesus in the chat. Omar's chin may just be done. If you want to take the approach of step on this kid's neck because he's older now and his chin is shot, like I get that angle, man. That is perfectly fine. Go for it. I don't think I need to flip this coin personally.
And through a lens that a guy will fight for your dollar, looking at Chris Duncan, he's certainly going to at least try to do that, whether successfully or not. He's going to rush forward. And Tajik Bey, I appreciate you, man. I can't believe how far the channel's grown just in the past year, going up to 800 subs and beyond now. You guys are the absolute best. I don't thank you guys enough for supporting the content and talking fights with me week in and week out. It's awesome, and I love having the ability to have access to great guests like Clint that donate his time so generously for us here. So thank you all for subscribing, hitting the like button, and supporting the content. You guys are the best. But we can move on to featherweight, down a weight class. Probably one of my more confident picks on the entire card. Jack Shore taking on Makwan Amirkhani. Amirkhani should be he should have some more value on this line just because of his Tapology picture. If you guys know what I'm talking about, sitting on the couch with a lot of very beautiful European women, just having the time of his life, getting his face caressed and not giving a care in the world about his fighting career. But he's a one-trick pony, in my opinion. He's got the front chokes, like a million anaconda chokes in his record. In round 1, he's a beast. Round 2 and round 3 are much different stories, but I think that's the way to play Makwan Amirkhani here. If you're going to take the stab on him, just play that round 1 submission and call it a day. It's pretty much his money line. I saw my guy Victor De Jesus earlier. I think that's the play he's taking. Jack Shore, though, minus 500 favorite. I think he gets the job done inside the distance, man. Like, he's moving up to featherweight here. He's a decently sized guy for the weight class, a good skill set. Just faced his first defeat in Ricky Simone, which is a very forgivable loss. That's a guy that's going to make you look horrible. He's going to test your takedown defense, destroy your will pretty early in the fight, and he managed to get the club and sub victory there. So it was like he hit him with like a counter right or something like that, and then dove on the arm triangle. Am I right? I think that's what happened.
Fight, so. And Ricky's got a hell of a squeeze on him.
Yeah, it was like an instant. He dove right onto it. So I'll forgive that one. First loss for Jack Shore. I think his boxing is super underrated. His boxing at this weight class should do very well at featherweight. And I just think he's got the cardio, the wrestling after round 1 especially. And he never really does naked takedown attempts without setting it up first. He should be okay about the submission threat coming back his way. Any action on this fight? I haven't played anything here yet.
No, I haven't played anything on this one yet myself either. Honestly, for me, I think this is probably a live bet spot just because Makwan's best round is always round 1. And he pulls the upset sometimes by sub in round 1. Like, if he has a decent first round and he can outmuscle Jack Shore, we might get a better number going into round 2. And I think that's probably the way that I would approach it if I'm going to play it. I'm with you. I'm going to pick Jack Shore to get the win, but I can't get behind him as a minus 500 favorite here off his first loss, moving up a weight class. Now, he's trying to sell everybody on the doctors telling him that he's going to do long-term damage to himself, cutting all that weight. The weight cuts were really bad. All these kinds of things. But Makwan is a much larger man than he is. And I really need to see the scales. I really need to see the face-offs. Has Jack Shore filled out now for this weight class? I got to see it because I think Jack Shore's grappling, a lot of that was his ability to just bully his opponents. You're right. I like his technical striking. He's going to have a technical striking advantage here over Makwan Amirkhani, but Makwan refuses to do anything but grapple in his fights. So I think Jack Shore is going to end up in some wrestling exchanges here, and Makwan is a big, strong, powerful, good wrestler. Now, If Jack Shore can fight him off in the first round, we know Makwan's cardio is going to dip off a cliff in round 2. So I do think the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Jack. Jack might be able to find his way to a finish in the 3rd round or something like that. But I need to see that size discrepancy. And honestly, man, he kind of needs to prove it to me, because I think he may be... There's an outside shot that Jack Shore is a bust of a prospect. I mean, it's not super likely. It's not super likely, but there's a chance. I mean, his wins are Ludovic Shulinian, Hunter Azure, Aaron Phillips, like
world beaters, all of them.
What's that?
World beaters, all of them. Come on now.
Exactly.
And he finished every one of them, didn't he?
Yeah, he went to a split with Hunter. He won decisions over Valiev and Shulinian. Now, the Valiev win is a good one. Don't get me wrong.
That was amazing. That's really the one that sold me on him, to be honest, because I'm high on Timur Valiev.
Yeah. I mean,
also, I'm told Timur Valiev is on The Ultimate Fighter. Is that true?
Yes. So is Hunter, I believe. I think those are both guys that are getting the call back for the Ultimate Fighter. So, guys that are borderline UFC, right? Like, they've got good, solid, respectable skill sets, but they've also both taken a lot of L's at this level and been cut by the organization. So, like, it just makes you wonder, man. And I don't like him coming up a weight class. Now, Makwan, I think, is essentially turning into a throwaway at this point. His record speaks for itself in that matter. But at the same time, this is a tough matchup. If he can do anything to anybody, it's bully them in the grappling realm. If he's bigger, if he's stronger, if he can handle the grappling of Jack Shore, all of a sudden Makwan is very, very live in this fight if Jack Shore is a busted prospect. So I want to see it. I just want to watch. Wheezy, I don't mind that one bit, because I really don't think that Jack Shore... I don't think that Jack Shore is going to pull a Lerone Murphy. I don't think it's going to be a start of round 2 flying knee. He's more of a point striker. He's more of an outside pitter-patter type of guy. And if he does grapple, it's a control thing. So I really think the over 1.5 is a decent look. And if Jack Shore does get a finish, it's probably late round 2 or round 3. I don't think it's going to be a round 1 or an early round 2, which makes it hard for me to justify the minus 500 price tag. Picking Jack Shore, round 3 sprinkle makes sense. Might get a better number live, but I'm probably just going to sit back and watch this one, man. I'll root for you. I'll wish you luck, but I think I'm just going to watch.
I don't have anything on this fight just yet. I was thinking about playing something, like maybe do like, sometimes I'll do like a degenerate round robin at the advice of my guy Lou Bet. Yeah, I usually watch his prop show on the MMA Engine, find some good spots that I line up with, some big plus money spots, like a Jack Shore round 2, Jack Shore round 3. Put them all in a round robin, see how many we hit. And if you just hit like 3 out of a 6 round robin parlay there, you could make some money. But
fun.
Man, they're really killing us with these Jack Shore, because they're fading the cardio drop off of Makwan so badly. You're getting like plus 400, plus 500 for Shore to win in round 2, in round 3. It's pitiful.
No, they know.
Do you think the live market, like if you live bet this, will they adjust accordingly as well? I know you live bet a lot more than I do. So like, are they going to know that like going from round 1 to round 2, like, okay, Makwan's winning round 1, but are they going to give you a good number on Shore for round 2 or no?
So do they know? Yes. Do they adjust it? I don't think they do it quick enough personally. So like you go back to the Dricus Duplessis fight, right? I got plus 175 on him at the end of round 1. You knew he was going to be the one of the 2 guys that could push through the cardio disadvantage, right? Like both guys were exhausted. Both guys were tired. We've seen Dricus do it time and time again. You're giving me plus 175 on the kid? Like, that's better than his inside the distance line pre-fight. Of course I'm betting that. But it was there. They hung it at the end of round 1. So sometimes they do crazy things live betting, man. I'd be curious, because even if you're getting Jack Shore at like minus 180 live or something like that, I'd like that a whole lot better than minus 500.
Absolutely. Make sure everybody tunes into Clint's post-weigh-in show on his channel. Or is that on Pub Sports, or is that on your channel?
That is on PubSportsRadio. Yes,
on Pub Sports.
Right after
you analyze. You do one of the best analysis of people and nitpick their every mannerism and motion, how they looked on the scale, if they wore sunglasses or not, who's trying to put their poker face on and hide how in pain they are. So
I appreciate
check out that one. That's going to be a good one, especially for this, where it's like, man, I have trouble remembering how big Makwan is until you brought it up. He's going to outsize Jack Shore quite a bit. So we'll see here what's going on, Isaiah. Good to see you. And all of you guys in here in the live chat, hit the like, check out the links in the description for all of Clint's works. And we can move on to the main card, which is our most anticipated fight besides the main event, Marvin Vettori taking on Roman Dolidze at middleweight. Awesome fight here. Two really colorful personalities at the weight class, so this should be quite a fun one to kick off the pay-per-view. Dolidze is on quite a tear, dude. Like, I was picking him for a lot of the fights like Dalkus and Filho even, but then I bet against him big. I was pretty big and heavily invested in Jack Hermanson late last year, and it cost me a lot of money. So I'm not really eager to step in the way of Roman Dolidze here, especially with Vettori's price tag of what are we looking at? Like a minus 275 on a lot of books here, plus 220, plus 230 for Roman Dolidze. I mean, I think Vettori wins the fight by decision. Volatile fight, man. I could see a late finish from Vettori as well. Roman Dolidze, he's got his work cut out because he's got to either grapple this man for the majority of 3 rounds or knock him out, which nobody's done before. Neither of these two men have been finished in their career. So, that would lead to the overs. But these guys are so wild, Clint. I don't know if I can trust, playing the overs in this bout. What do I do here? I'm leaning Vettori decision, but no money on this one so far. Do you have any action on this fight?
I'm in the same boat. No, I don't have any action, but I want to be on Marvin Vettori. I really do. I'm going to probably find a way to play Marvin Vettori. Roman Dolidze has been on an absolutely incredible run. I love my Georgians. This guy's made out of iron. He's hard to finish. He seems to gas out and have cardio problems, but he manages to push his way through that. And man, what he did to Jack Hermanson, that submission game that he's got on him is filthy. He's so creative, finds a way to get in there and win. But Marvin Vettori, he's been fighting nothing but the top echelon and fighting competitively with them. Now, he got styled on by Rob Whittaker, but the kid is still not even 30 years old. He's 29, and he's already fought Israel Adesanya twice, one of them to a split. He fought Jack Hermanson. He fought Paulo Costa and beat the brakes off of him in the most gangster move you'll ever see, accepting the fight, up 2 weight classes. I have and no reason.
Those guys threw down. How many strikes did they land? Like 200 apiece. And he was eating head kicks. He was eating shins to the face in round 1, just acting like nothing happened. That was such a wild fight in October of 2021 already. Was that? That was a long time ago. Yeah, it seems like it just happened yesterday, but yeah, wild fight. It just shows how durable that guy is and how good his cardio is as well.
Yep. The big thing for me here is that I think Roman Dolidze is he's too volatile with his decision making, right? Like he'll regularly drop for heel hooks. He'll regularly roll to his back. He'll accept bottom position. When he gets tired, especially, he'll accept bottom position and work for subs off of his back. Marvin Vettori's never been finished, and maybe he's never fought a finisher like Roman Dolidze. That very much could be true. But when you've got guys like Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, and Paulo Costa all hitting you with everything they've got, and he eats it for breakfast, says, "Thank you, sir, I'll have some more," and keeps coming forward and punching his way into range. This kid, I don't think you can finish him, frankly. That's the kind of, his durability is off the freaking charts. And if he's just going to zombie his way forward no matter what, even if he couldn't bust a grape with his punches, even if he doesn't have any power of his own, he will just outwork you. And I think that's what this fight is going to come down to, is the gas tank. If Marvin can't finish Roman, if Roman can't finish Marvin, who's got the better gas tank? That's Vettori. I'm with you. I think it's probably Vettori by decision, but he is ever improving, 5 years younger. You never know. Don't count out, a late TKO or something like that if he just manages to out hustle Roman and Roman's too tired to move and gets, pinned down and like crucifix situation type of thing where he just can't get out of it and the referee steps in and stops it. I can see something like that happening, but more than likely going to be a decision. And I think Marvin Vettori gets the win and kind of gets back on track here. I think this is the end of the run for Roman Dolidze.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard money train to get in the way of, because Dolidze could very well be undefeated if it weren't for that, transition against Trevin Giles, and then still a questionable decision at that. And we used to make fun of the guy for dropping for heel hooks. Now we see him shredding the knee of Phil Hawes, setting up the finish with the hands with that. So now it's starting to, dude, when he did the first sweep of Jack Hermanson, not the finishing sequence, but like the first one, I was like, wow, he got lucky with that one. And then he did it again and got the calf slicer for the back mount and the finish. I was like, well, let's take it. I can rip this one up on Jack Hermanson.
Yeah.
Damn. That was so impressive.
You know what, though? That's my thing here. I haven't bet it yet. I want to. Everything in me is screaming Marvin Vettori is the side. But Roman's maybe just one of those guys you don't have to step in front of. Like Roman could just be the dude that like continues to find a way to win. And you don't have to bet against him. And shit, if you've been on the Roman Dolidze train, bet him again. They keep making him a plus 250 underdog. They keep giving you plus money on this guy that is shredding through everybody. If you've bet his last 2 or 3 fights in a row, what have you got to lose? Go right back to the well. I don't have any problem with backing a guy that's been good to you as an underdog like that before. So yeah, I don't know if I'm actually going to get to the window on this one. I haven't yet, but I'm with you in picking Marvin Vettori.
This was an early pick. My guy Lou Betya had asked me what the yam bag. He's like, without thinking, what's the yam bag play of this card? And this was the fight I chose because both guys are out of their mind. You got Dolidze makes rash decisions. He could do something illegal, grab the fence, knee a downed opponent, hit you square in the nards. And then Vettori is like the ultimate drama queen. Like he starts cursing in Italian and, he's all red in the face and angry. So this could be a fun yam bag spot. Look for that point deduction. So yeah, I don't know. I want to root for both guys in this one and just watch this craziness unfold. So I'm not sure what I'll have action wise on this one, but I do lean Vettori by decision, which is like about minus 130 or so. But the next fight up, we got our final female bout here of the night, flyweight bout between Jennifer Maia and the returning Casey O'Neill. O'Neill is still only 25 years old. She's been out for I think a knee repair, like an ACL or something like that, some knee repair at the end of beginning of last year. So it's been quite a long time since we saw her destroy Roxanne Modafferi in a what they deemed to be a split decision. I think that was a clear win for Casey O'Neill. But that was Roxanne's retirement fight, so I do nitpick that performance a bit because Roxanne actually put up her personal record in significant strikes in her retirement bout at like 40 years old over Casey O'Neill as well. I'm liking Jennifer Maia as a dog in this spot. Not enough to play her, though. This is almost like we talked about before with Wood and Carolina, where you're like, look, we got to anticipate some downward trajectory of the older fighter here and anticipate the upside for the younger one. Now, I'm not saying that Maia's over the hill, but, she might be more of the finished product, whereas Casey O'Neill could be getting better. So boxing for boxing, if this stays at boxing range, I like Maia striking all day long, though. Her feints are better. Her hand speed and power is better. Combinations put together are better. If Casey can get the fight to the ground or maintain like a kickboxing counter-striking range, then she could win. But right now, I'm liking the Maia side. How do you feel about this one? Are you a big O'Neill fan?
No, not at all. I do want to shout out Casey O'Neill, though. She got something. She got upset at me at one point for something. Honestly, it's funny. It's one of those ones where like I don't even have any idea what I did, but she blocked me, and then I randomly figured out that she unblocked me at some point. So I'm like, I don't even know what I did in the first place. Like, I've never even tweeted at her. Like
maybe you're just so handsome that she was having so many desires and thoughts that she just had to get your face out of her timeline for a bit until she settled down and she could unblock you again.
That's the one. She had a jealous boyfriend. That had to be what happened.
Yeah. Block that guy. Who's that stud? Block him.
It was when I was shaking my ass because I had to twerk for a victory. That's what happened. No,
this
man.
Is the story we're sticking to
it. No, I love I like the idea of Jennifer Maia. I'm with you in that because there's so many questions about Casey O'Neill. Now, she is a hype train like we've seen many a time before in these weight classes, and they just don't always pan out. It looks like she's the goods, but I mean, Shanna Dobson, Laura Fritzen, who? The bad Shevchenko sister. And you mentioned Roxanne Modafferi in her retirement fight. And by the way, let's give a quick shout out to Roxanne Modafferi. Yes. Most people go in one foot in the grave in their retirement fight. She went in fuck it, no breaks in her retirement fight and went
shooting double leg takedowns, throwing strikes in the pocket at all times.
Most exciting Roxanne Modafferi fight of all time because she said, let's let it hang out there for the last fight. But that's the kind of thing we're dealing with, right? Like, no real contender is going life and death with Roxanne Modafferi. You just don't see it. So we have questions about how good Casey O'Neill is. Now, she also is very much in the prime years of her career where she's going to be making improvements, 25 years old, training at a good gym. I can't get enough of Extreme Couture. I love the bodies there. I love the coaches there. I think that's a great place for her, and she's been gone for a full calendar year. Expect her to look better. Straight up, expect her to look better. But I can't get it out of my head, like you said, that the boxing advantage for Jennifer Maia is probably aggressive. Casey O'Neill is going to want to take this thing to the ground. Jennifer Maia's got one of the nastiest arm bars in the division. She's a legitimate BJJ black belt. If only she would have some offensive wrestling of her own, she could be a problem, but she lets other people do the wrestling for her. I just don't want to touch this one because Casey O'Neill could make such improvements and come in here with a great game plan. We've seen how to beat Jennifer Maia. Like, the game plan is proven. It's there. Caitlin Chukagian hurt her death. Stay on the outside, jab her, move her. She's not the most athletic lady in the weight class, and she doesn't wrestle. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you just want to kickbox her for 15 minutes, you got a clear path to victory over her. So I think Casey O'Neill very much can ride something along those lines and get it done. Hell, she also might be athletic and strong enough to take down someone like Jennifer Maia, have her turtle up, cause her to be on her back, mind your P's and Q's, don't get your arm snapped. I just can't trust her coming off of a knee surgery and a year-long layoff. I got to see it. This is a giant step up for someone in that place. Now, maybe it speaks to the coaches and the UFC, what they think of her and her ceiling. I'm not laying money on it. It's dog or pass from a betting perspective for me. And again, like a lot of this card, I apologize, I'm being boring. It's pass or pass. I don't have a lot of bets this week, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're going back to the record of Casey O'Neill in her 4-0 run in the UFC. Like, it was Shayna Dobson, she was able to take her down. Laura Procopio took her down. Shevchenko took her down. Roxanne couldn't take her down, and it was quite the contrary, right? She got taken down by Mokaev. So not that she pushed the wrestling issue too much in that fight, but still, that was the first time she couldn't take an opponent down, and she, actually had to hang with a retiring fighter. So I don't know. I got to anticipate some improvements is the only reason I'm not betting this fight. I'm pushing out on a bet on the underdog here. One of the few underdogs I have, dude. You introduced the term to me that I was calling myself in my head when I was doing the breakdowns. I'm like, dude, I'm being a chalk donkey right now. I'm a chalk donkey this week. Clint was right. God damn it. I don't have many dogs at all. So
there's nothing wrong with being a chalk donkey, man. Sometimes chalk boy, the juice boys pay, right?
Matt, shout out to my guy Matt W. saying I came in just in time to say Casey's striking is shit. That really is like the puzzle piece that she would have to put into her game over this past year. Is if she can get better hand speed, more power, better combinations, being like, the first fighter to engage, wait for the counter, and then hit your, be first and third. I see that way better from Maia than I do from Casey O'Neill. So I don't know. I'm not getting in the way of this
athleticism gap, though.
There is, and if I don't know, I want to see this one unfold. I'm expecting a vet lesson for Maia. You have this undefeated fighter in Casey O'Neill come back, get her first humbling officially, and then make the better improvements. She's still very young, 25 years old, but I'm picking Maia here by decision. So I don't know. We seem to be on the same page on that one, and I'm glad that Casey O'Neill is open to seeing your pretty face on Twitter again. So that's
I definitely appreciate it. I may say some stupid things, but I'm not a hater, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, that is a weird thing, man, and I think you're in the same boat as I am. Like, we don't do the fighter interviews or things like that. I don't know how I feel about that because I do have to treat the fighters like they're livestock sometimes when we're talking about putting money behind them. They're no longer like the fighter. Yeah. If I was doing like an MMA news thing or an interview, that would be all respect, all love. But I do have to say some nasty things just out of, it's a commodity, your gambling commodity in this lens.
Yeah, it's the gig. And dude, that's why I don't do fighter interviews. Like, I started with fighter interviews and I realized real quick, I'm like, oh shit, like, I got to talk about how bad you are at defending takedowns.
Right.
I can't do that and then ask you to come back on the show. Like, somebody's going to clip that and link it to you and you're going to hate me. Like, you can't, it's hard to play that game as a gambler. You can do it with some like very particular people that are cool with it and they understand the gambling aspect of it. But even then it's hard, man. Like, Cody Brundage is a perfect example of that. Like, he followed me and I bet against him for a fight. He talked a little shit and blocked me. And I was like, I get it. Like, I said he was bad. I said mean things about him. I wouldn't want to deal with that shit online either. He ended up unblocking me down the line. And now we DM back and forth sometimes. And he's totally cool with me. And he's like, man, I was just angry. I was in fight camp. I was hungry. I totally get it. You're betting. It's cool. Like, we're good now. So like, I appreciate that they come back around that way, but that's where you just got to tread lightly with fighters when you're a gambler, man. It's tough.
Or you could be like our guy Lou Betya and just not tread lightly with Cody and have him on the show and then be like, dude, what the fuck? You told me round 2 guillotine. Now you didn't get it. You knocked him out. What the fuck's wrong with you?
But that's exactly the type of cool fighter I'm talking about. Cody seems like a cool dude. Not all of these fighters can handle that kind of a relationship or would be able to pull that off.
Right. We can move ahead here for welterweight between Gunnar Nelson and Bryan Barbarena. Barbarena showing up on short notice. I think this was supposed to be Gunnar Nelson and Daniel Rodriguez. Would have been an intriguing bout there since they both do have some high-level grappling. But right now we're looking at a giant favorite price tag on Gunnar Nelson, the minus 400. It's come down a bit, minus 350 for Gunnar Nelson. Bryan Barbarena right around that plus 280 to plus 300 underdog price tag. And given the stylistic matchup, Bryan Barbarena's lack of wrestling defense, his recency bias of his last bout where he got dominated by RDA and choked out. I could see the same thing happening in this bout for Gunnar Nelson. The price tag is a bit wild. I do think this is like a dog or pass spot, if I'm being honest with you. Like, unless you find some prop of Gunnar Nelson by sub that's playable, Gunnar Nelson's at the distance, I think Barbarena gets grounded repeatedly here and worn out because I like Gunnar Nelson's patience. He's all the way in or all the way out with that karate stance. If he gets all the way in, he body locks you and takes you down. He holds position pretty well. He's not going to risk losing a position, as we saw in that frustrating fight with Takashi Sato last year. But Bryan Barbarena is more of a frantic guy who's trying to scramble to his feet as fast as possible. Gives up his back, gives up his neck. So I got to go with Gunnar Nelson by sub or decision. But Bryan Barbarena, man, if he could just land the better shots and somehow miraculously stay on his feet, wear out the gas tank maybe of Gunnar Nelson, I don't know. Then I could see him, landing the better brawling strikes and coming away with a decision victory. But plus 900 for Barbarena by decision, maybe that's the way you would play it. Or just a big plus money on him is good enough. Don't have to get greedy with it. How do you feel about this one?
Man, I've got such a bad read on both of these guys. Gunnar Nelson broke my heart not submitting Takashi Sato in that last fight. I had a monster parlay that came down to that sub being the last leg and had the rear naked choke.
Was it one of your submission parlays where like guys were winning by submission? Okay.
It was the submission.
I love when you do
special.
those.
Man, I'll be honest with you. I was counting the money already. I thought it was in the bag. Like, it was over. It's a wrap. He's got Sato's back. He's got the rear naked choke sunk in, and then just couldn't finish it. So before that, though, like Gunnar Nelson, he's fought a high level of competition, man. Santiago Ponzinibbio, Leon Edwards, Gilbert Burns, Damian Maia. Like, this guy is not shying away from tough fights, but I really hate his inactivity. He took a big break from 2019 to 2022. He only fought once in 2022. Now he's fighting, for the first time in 2023. Like, it's real tough for me to get behind Gunnar Nelson, and I'm not sure how good he is. He's 34 years old. He's got that karate stance. One of the most low volume fighters you will ever see. He lands less than 2 significant strikes per minute over the course of like a 14 fight UFC career. It's insane. So he's not knocking anybody out with volume. Sometimes he can hurt people on the feet if he catches them just perfectly. And then if he goes to the grappling, he's slick on the ground. He really is. But like you mentioned, Bryan Barbarena, he's another one of these get-up guys. Bad takedown defense, awful takedown defense, lost a decision to Jason Witt, but refuses to go away. Great gas tank, stays in the fight, gets back up, and tries to punch you in the mouth. He's a volume guy that's just going to keep on coming after you. And it took, Rafael Dos Anjos had to land, 4 or 5 takedowns, got him into round 2 before he finally found the sub. That's not the kind of cardio and pressure that someone like Gunnar Nelson has. I am never laying this price tag on Gunnar Nelson. I don't know that I can trust the chin of Bryan Barbarena, who's already teased the fact that he could hang it up at any point in time and is simply fighting because he's having fun at 33 years old at this point. Like, I don't like that. Like, that it's not
supposed to be fun.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's not the 1 foot in the grave retirement type of situation. He's not throwing out that R word, but the fact that he just doesn't give a fuck, and he how seriously is he taking his training? I don't know. Like, so yeah,
I'd rather a guy like him say that he's on a title run eventually, and I can roll my eyes at that. But at least he's trying,
Exactly. It's the Anthony Smith delusional disbelief in yourself. Like that. I want that. I want them to believe that they can take out the big dog in the division. These guys that realistically understand, I'm just going to punch people in the face once or twice a year for the next 3 or 4 years, and then I'm done. You never know what effort level you're getting. Like, I assume Bryan Barbarena is going to show up and fight his ass off, because generally speaking, that's what we've seen from him. But like, the Rafael Dos Anjos fight looms heavily in the rearview mirror. The Jason Witt loss is one that I just cannot get out of my head. You shouldn't be losing to Jason Witt at this point in the game. Like, I think Gunnar Nelson can take him down and style on him on the ground. If he doesn't get the finish, Brian Barbarena is going to out-volume him on the feet. And I don't know why, but I think Brian Barbarena is chinny. He's only got 2 knockout losses on his record, but for some reason, my brain is telling me that his chin is just like completely gone. That's not true. He gets rocked in every fight and then fights his way back through it. Again, he's only 33 years old, but he just feels like a guy hanging on the edge. So it's not a dog I want to trust.
He dealt with a lot of injuries, didn't he? He dealt with like a lot of like some sort of surgeries around the 2020 mark, if I remember correctly. Yep. Maybe some back stuff, some internal bleeding type stuff. I forgot what it was. Yep. It was something wild. So
big time wear and tear on him that just at this age and this stage of his career, not something normal. But man, from betting wise, like I think it's dog or pass, but I don't want to trust this dog, and I'm never laying that price tag with Gunnar Nelson. This is the biggest pass on the card, in my opinion.
You could look at something like what Uncle Weezy's saying. 22 out of 27 combined fights between Barbarena and Nelson have went over the 1.5 round mark, 81%, and then some. And he smashed it at minus 120. I'm seeing that on like Bovada. The alternate over is like minus 170 now. Will that still be playable, Unk? And I know on DraftKings, the fight to start round 3 is at minus 115 for this bout as well. What do you think about those spots, Unk? Got Justin in here as well. Yeah, Gunnar Nelson, only Connor mentioned it. And this is a spot where Gunnar Nelson, like he's fighting on these London cards, right? He's waiting a whole calendar year for this to come back to his part of the world. Yep. As a few of these people on this card are, I understand it, but still.
Can't be bothered.
Not be something you want to put minus 400 behind for sure. But yeah, we're on the same side of that one. Probably a dog or pass spot unless you can find a prop edge on this fight. I do think I think Gunnar Nelson rights his wrong from last year's London card and gets that submission for you eventually here. What did you have on that card? That was probably like I think Paul Craig was probably on your parlay. Paddy Pimblett maybe a Mokaev. He got the sub, and then the only guy not to do it was Gunnar Nelson.
Yeah, it was one of those cards where like you could have mixed and matched. There were like 4 or 5 people that got submissions on it. Like it should have been just a cakewalk. And of course, the one who was most likely was the one who did not get the finish here. Let me look back and see, because it was Paddy Pimblett that was one of the legs, I think. Pimblett, Mokaev, Nelson. And I made a bigger bet on it because I was so convinced that it was taking place. That was painful.
That's almost one of those spots where like the second leg of your 3-legger fails, and you're like, all right, I hope Paddy Pimblett doesn't get the submission here just so I don't feel bad about it. It's like, I hope he knocks him out or something. Uncle Weezy saying that the over 1.5 in that Gunnar Nelson Barbarena fight. Still playable due to his metrics at minus 170. All right. Yeah, that's on Bovada right now. Can move on to the co-main event. Very compelling fight here between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev at 155. A striker's delight here. Unless I know you're sometimes a contrarian, an underdog finder yourself. What are the chances Justin Gaethje puts on the Asics and the wrestling singlet and finally shows us at this point in his career he's going to wrestle like he did back in college? You think that's likely here, Clint?
Never. This is the Sean Strickland spot of the week, man. We all want him to grapple. We all think, hey, if you would just mix it in, we know you've got it in your back pocket. Man, it's never happening.
Hasn't he like vocally specifically said, I'm not wrestling ever in the UFC? I think he's come out and said something like he wants to be exciting and not boring or something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, and he was talking today. I listened to his interview. He was saying he does not know how to turn it off. He was like, I simply cannot turn off. Like, this action fighter is who I am. I get in there and I lose control, and that's just what I do. So
we believe you. We believe you, man.
I've seen it, yeah.
And he gets rewarded. He gets rewarded monetarily for it time and time again. He's getting the performance or fight of the night, or either beat down or ass kicking or just like, slobber knocker of the night awards. So he's getting paid 50 G's a pop to not wrestle, right? So it's kind of working out for him. I lean Fiziev in this fight. I haven't gotten to a money line bet. Should I get on a money line bet here at minus 225 Fiziev?
I was leaning that way and haven't gotten to the bet either. And I think we can. I think this is that spot where I know it's, group think tank and we're not supposed to do that. Shout out Liam Picks Fights. But
my guy,
I just think this is that changing of the guard, man. You've seen time and time again, Justin Gaethje can compete with the best in the world. He absolutely can. But when he gets to that peak, when he gets to that pinnacle, he loses every single time. Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier, Khabib, Charles Oliveira. He is taking so much damage. And his style does not work with these extremely high-level fighters that really are destined to have gold around their waist. Is that Rafael Fiziev? I think it is. From what we have seen, especially the Brad Riddell and the RDA fights recently, I think it is. He's a better technical striker than Justin Gaethje is, so he's going to be able to have that advantage on the feet, something not a lot of people can say. His takedown defense is incredible. Justin Gaethje is never shooting a takedown, so even if he did, I wouldn't be shocked if Fiziev was able to defend the takedown and stay on the feet and stuff like that. I think this is going to be a banger. It's going to be a technical kickboxing match, and it might be close, but we've seen Fiziev take giant shots and be durable. He's only been knocked out once, and it was a freak spinning back fist that nobody saw coming. This ain't it. I think he's going to read Justin Gaethje and pick him apart on the feet. I think he'll have basically an answer for everything Justin does. I think there's levels to this shit spot where Justin Gaethje, what he does best, this guy is just better at.
Yeah, I agree with you. I see my guy Dev in the chat talking about the Justin via leg kicks, and that's a good a point there. It's one of the big weapons, but Fiziev is good at stance switching and moving. So he could even, he could take a welting calf kick and then just switch stances and be equally as powerful.
And he's a Tiger Muay Thai guy. He can check kicks. This isn't the guy that's just going to let you kick his leg off. He'll do something about it.
Yeah, I like Fiziev, and if it wasn't for the dog that you called last week, Clint, with your Merab Dvalishvili, I would have said that one of the more impressive Rafael Fiziev performances was him having his first 5-rounder against Dos Anjos last year and having the cardio to not only get in a 5-round fight and survive, but finish the damn fight in round 5. But then Merab came in there in his first 5-rounder and, just showed amazing cardio, tenfold. But still, an impressive performance in a 5-round bout. This is only 3 rounds, and that's another point. Is Justin Gaethje is a guy who has been in, I think, 7 out of his 10 fights have been headlining bouts that were scheduled for 5 rounds. A few of those have made it to 5 rounds and ended there. So, the wars that he's got into, the finishes he has, some of them are because it was a war of attrition over a 5-round fight, both for and against him. So, my only contrarian play in this fight is that I don't think it's my hunch goes against the stats in this fight. I think Fiziev could win by decision in this bout. I think he could take this to the scorecards, pot shot from the outside, play a safe fight, avoid the big bombs, and it's a spot where a lot of people have the unders, and it actually goes over, and it sees the scorecards. But Justin Gaethje, he's a finisher here, 19 knockouts out of 23 wins. I think if he wins the fight, I think it will be by finish, but I think Fiziev could do either one. So to get plus 350 or so on Gaethje by knockout, I think that's the way that you would approach this if you're on the Gaethje side of things. I've never one to really get cute. If I'm getting a plus 190 price tag, I would just play that. But if you want to get crazy with it, try to multiply your side here as a Gaethje better. Plus 350 is not a bad bet for his most, by far and large, most way of finishing a fight by knockout. But yeah, I think we're right here. Man, I just couldn't. I feel like I was getting so chalky with my bets this week, man. I just couldn't bring myself to add another Fiziev bet to it. But I kind of want to. Clint, are we going to do it?
See, this is the one where I think the chalk makes sense. There's a couple of sketchier spots further on down the card, and I never want to.
I chose those ones.
Yeah,
I didn't choose this one. I chose those.
See, I guess my thing is I can poke the holes in the fighters that aren't quite at this level yet. These are the guys where we kind of should know at this point. Right. You know what I mean? I think Fiziev is clearly the side at this point in their careers. I think Justin Gaethje is, we know what he is. He's an exciting fighter. He's a gatekeeper at this point. He's going to get those performance of the night bonuses. If Fiziev is fraudulent, Justin Gaethje will show us that, but I think he's legit.
All right, we're on the same side of that one. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. Hit the like, hit the subscribe for this awesome London pay-per-view week, UFC 286, headlined by the championship we're about to dive into. But make sure you check out my guest Clint's awesome content down below through the links, PubSportsRadio. Check out Clint's YouTube channel, Die Hard MMA Podcast, one of the most entertaining and informative ones in the game. And also, dude, I always have to tell you this. I blame you for diving into this content shit because I watched your show, and after a while, I'm like, maybe I'll try my hand at it and be a little bit like Clint, at least a little bit entertaining and informative. So just like your show, I try to preach that, I'm not the best at the gambling aspect. I'm newer to that, but I do know about the sport, and I try to at least teach something in my breakdown. So even if you disagree with me, maybe you learn something. That's something I've gotten from you. So
that's as we move into,
Yeah, so I appreciate you for that. And let's move into this fight where I think we do disagree. I didn't watch your show yet. I got blind opinions in all of them, but I did see your post that you were on the dog in this fight. So Leon Rocky Edwards, reigning defending champion here in London against Kamaru Usman, the man that he stole the belt from back in August. Awesome head kick knockout that actually knocked Anderson Silva, submitting Chael Sonnen back in 2010. That knocked that out of first place for best comeback for me because unlike Anderson Silva, he was not supposed to win this fight. He was the underdog. You know, he was in hostile grounds, a different country, kind of an afterthought as an underdog in that bout until the last second. And then just like his nickname, he had like a Rocky-like performance, got that knockout. That's got to be number one for me, dude. How'd that moment rank for you in UFC moments you've seen?
I mean, it's that one, and then it's the Yair Rodriguez up elbow on the Korean Zombie. Because that one, I think Yair still gets it for me just because of the insanity of the technique. You know what I mean? Like, this was the highest stakes comeback ever, but who throws an up elbow? And I think there was literally 1 second left on it.
It was 1 second. Yeah, so, it was 1 second left.
That one's the biggest comeback of all time for me, but Leon's a very close number two.
Yeah, so tell me now that I know that you've got action on Leon Edwards, I've got action. I've got a 4-unit bet on Kamaru Usman because I think that this fight is pretty much the same as it was before. Unravel the narrative, unravel the subplots here. What are the differences that I should be aware of, and why is my bet going to lose on Saturday night? Why is Leon Edwards going to retain his belt here? Is Kamaru Usman going to be retiring after this fight the way that Leon seems to think?
So I don't know that Kamaru is going to retire. I mean, maybe he's one of those guys where if it's not the belt, it's nothing, and he hangs it up. I could see that. But I mean, realistically, he's a guy that could fight at the top of the weight class for another couple years if he wanted to, bank some more bucks. But he might be more interested in Hollywood at this point. Who knows? I still haven't gone to see the new Black Panther movie yet, but I need to go check out his role in that one. Basically, I mean, like you said, man, this is the same fight. It really is. But Leon Edwards is the younger, fresher fighter. He's younger by 4 years. He's taller. He is longer. And he is the fighter who's in his prime as far as making improvements. So between fights, Kamaru Usman was laying in a bed with an ice pack on his forehead, recovering from a concussion, whereas Leon Edwards was back in the gym, working on defending that belt, improving his skill set, getting better, knowing that this rematch was on its way. So I think there's something to that as far as the preparation leading into this one. The other thing that I really am kind of biting on here is the shift in mentality, because Kamaru Usman is 35 years old and he's only been finished once. It was his second professional fight. It's like, whatever. He was a kid. He made a mistake. He learned from that and he went on this insane run, took the belt. He was immortal in the UFC. Now he doesn't have that shine anymore. Like, he got knocked out cold, severed from his consciousness. That's never happened before. Now he's got to get back in the cage with the same guy that did it to him. We all want to pretend these guys are Terminators and they have no feelings. I can't imagine what that's like, to look across the cage from the guy that took everything from you, and not only took it from you by like a rough judge's split decision, but did it by force. And now he's got to dig deep and come back and be able to take that man on again, knowing full damn well that the game plan he used the last time didn't work. What's he going to do instead this time? That grappling discrepancy between these guys, I think it's rapidly shrinking. And I actually made an argument because I was on Usman last time. I had a bet on Usman as well. In that first round, I talked about how Kamaru Usman, it was more of him making a mistake and Leon capitalizing on that mistake, which led to the ground, scramble and transition in that spot. I was less impressed with what Leon did and more frustrated with what Usman did. But man, that's two in the same title fight. For a fighter in Kamaru Usman who simply does not make errors or mistakes and punishes his opponents for doing something wrong, he made two crucial mistakes in that title fight in his last fight, and it cost him. We've never seen that from him before. He's getting older. He's slowing down. We know his knees are bad. And now he does not have that uncrackable armor around him anymore. He knows he can be beaten by this man. The opposite is true. Leon Edwards had the worst fight of his life. Didn't even start fighting until round 5. and his cornerman had to scream at him for 20 minutes before he finally woke up. He talked about they talked about the cardio being an issue. He's over there, didn't train well enough for the altitude. So he was struggling with being in that fight and fighting a rough, hard fight with the altitude situation going on. He didn't expect it to be as big of a factor as it was. He's talked about that. Now he knows, on my worst night, I can knock that dude out. On my worst night. What happens if he fights his best? What happens if he comes out and he starts in round 1? Well, you know what I mean? Like, I just think this fight is a whole lot more competitive. I think it's a whole lot closer. I think it's disrespectful to make the seeded champion, especially this big of an underdog. I do understand that the way the skill sets play out, I would still personally line Kamaru Usman a favorite. I said I'd set it at -180. So based on my own line of this fight, there's value on the underdog here at this number. So I got to take a shot with Leon Edwards. He's the champ. He's got the momentum. He's in his hometown. He's got the judges if it's close. Like, frankly, man, I think everything's on the table. And like I said, I expect him to have a better performance because I think that was the worst performance he possibly could have had. If he fights better at all, I think he can do this again. I think he can finish Kamaru Usman either by sub or by knockout again. And honestly, I think he could go a full hard 25 minutes with this guy and actually win a decision with him if he really wanted to. If he plays it smart, if he forces the get-up game, we've seen these judges do not favor the grappling control. If he lands bigger, harder shots on the feet, and I want to know what Usman's going to react to those shots like. Is he going to eat them the same way he used to? Is he going to flinch more? Is he going to try to avoid the contact a little bit more? Is he going to be a bit more reserved this fight? Like, those are all optics that I think could very much play into the favor of Rocky Edwards. So, yeah, man, I'm on the dog. I'm saying and still Leon Edwards.
Yeah, man, no, I agree. I can't argue with any of that. Like, that's all very true. My contrarian take,
it's all narrative. You can't argue it.
No, I can't. And to that opinion, like, I think that the mentality goes the opposite way too, like in the favor of Kamaru Usman. Like, he's the one who knows, like, look, my game plan was working. I fucked up like at 40 seconds left. And Leon Edwards is now in the mindset of like, man, I could put this on cruise control for 4 rounds straight. I still could win this fight in round 5. He could play even more one at a time striking. But I think Kamaru Usman's not going to want to stand at striking distance as much. He's going to close the distance, grapple. He's got one of the best gas tanks at welterweight or any weight class, really, as far as mixing up grappling, clinch proficiency, and also still striking effectively at range too. So I think there's going to be more of the foot stomp Usman over 25 minutes. I think there's going to be more of the clinch control Usman. There's going to be more of that. What did he land? Like 5 takedowns in the second fight between rounds 2 and rounds 5. I think there's going to be more of that, dude. And I just think this is not that different of a fight. Obviously, you're going to have, dude, I got to say, like, just for my money aside, I've got 4 units on this. I got a big bet on it, but it would almost be a good consolation prize if Leon won this fight, just to see the reaction of the hometown crowd go crazy. The UK fans are already the best in the game. They always have been for mixed martial arts. To see them go crazy this time at their own hometown, oh, that would be amazing to see that moment. That would be a consolation prize for me losing this bet. And you cashing yours is also a consolation, so I'm glad that we're head-to-head on this one. But, yeah, man, I don't think it's that different. You can argue that it is. You know, we've been hearing about how crippled and handicapped Kamaru Usman has been for a while now. I'm not sure how much I lean on that, you know what I mean? Because we've been hearing that for a while, ever since he did Rogan. I think he's probably fought once or twice since we've learned his knees are shot. So, I don't know. We're going to find out Saturday, man. I appreciate your time. What was the line you got on Leon Edwards, by the way?
So I got +210.
What do you think he wins by decision?
So
does he get another knockout?
I'm saying decision. I think Leon by decision, and just more emphatically this time, I think he comes out and proves that he is the champion. But honestly, man, I got to shout out. Lucrative was my guest this week on the podcast, and he talked about Leon actually catching a sub in this one, which is 20-1. And I'm like, honestly, I don't mind that one bit. Like, Usman is going to go back to the grappling. He's going to push the pace, wrestling again. And we saw what happened last time. He made a mistake. Leon was able to take him down. Leon was able to get his back. Like, there might be some submission opportunities here in this spot. And, if the champion wants to just pick and choose his domination and show that he is actually the man and I can beat you any which way I want to, like, shit, maybe he does sub him. A sprinkle at 20-1 doesn't sound half bad to me, just for fun. But yeah, I'm thinking decision. I think it goes long again. But I could absolutely, like I said, man, I could see Usman fighting, just not intentionally, but once he gets in there, he's human. I could see him fighting a little scared, and I could see Leon fighting a little overconfident, and that leading to another finish.
Yeah, if that guy gets some confidence and lets his strikes go, man, he's deadly. So I agree. I can't wait to see how this fight plays out, man. It's going to be a nerve-wracking one. But again, that's the fun of this and doing a show with you and having a friend with a bet on the other side of it. Because, either I win or you win. The money's going at least in somebody's pocket the right way. So
that's what we're here for.
Glad we have that going for us, man. I appreciate everybody in the live chat that listened to us ramble for 15 fights. Can't wait for this. I love pay-per-view fight week. And I love this early start time, too. We get fights that much sooner. So, Clint, what's your favorite prop of this card? What's your favorite money line bet of this card? We can end there.
Oof. Well, the money line is easy.
On the spot. Yeah.
The money line is Leon Edwards. That's going to be my favorite money line here on the card. Right. And then I guess, I got to say the other favorite prop is the bet that I've got, right? Mokaev by submission.
Okay.
I know that's boring. That's not a big, sexy number there for you guys. I think this is a really tough card to bet. There are guys out there that can rapid fire and they call every single fight on the card and they go 80% and they hit massive bets. And, the Lambo parlays crew, like, that just has really never been me. Like,
I had Narco on a couple weeks ago. I got Tim Troiano coming on next week to break down the card as well. So getting both
shout out Narco and Tim.
They're amazingly talented.
They're beasts at what they do, man. But that's where I got to pick my spots, a little bit more carefully. So if I was going to give you something that's a little crazy out there, it would be Luana Carolina by sub. That'd be the long shot that I'd be looking at.
All right. Well, I
or
appreciate
Veronica
your time.
Hardy.
Veronica, that's the one, dude. I feel like that fight could go either way, honestly. The more that I think about it, there's value on her. But shout out all of the stuff you got going on this week. I know you do your total takedown. I know you do your post weigh-in show. So what do you have going on, Clint?
Yeah, we've got those two shows. Those ones are weekly, but on the pay-per-views, we go a little crazy. I've got the Fight Exchange. We mentioned before that's on my personal YouTube channel. So thank you very much for mentioning that for me, my friend. And then, of course, the Sharp Action Report with my guy, oh my God, I just remembered forgot his name on the show. That's awful. It's Andrew from Superbook Sports who joins me on Fridays for the Sharp Action Report. We give you a peek behind the counter. He lets us know where the money's coming in, whether it's public or Sharp Action, that kind of stuff. So yeah, man, I got a lot of extra shows to go on for the next couple of days. It's going to be a good run leading up to this fight. And thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, dude, you're one of my favorite people, and you're, like I said, the OG of the game. I've been watching for a while. One of the most entertaining shows you have. There's a reason why it's one of the more popular ones. So keep doing what you do best, my friend. I wish you all the luck. Everybody in the chat, good luck in all of your betting action, and we'll talk to you guys very, very soon. Cheers.